Ladies and gentlemen, I'm very happy to be here and be able to present to you work we have done at the Languages Center at the University of Bremen in cooperation with Sibylle Seifert, Antonella Lavagno and the whole team at the Languages Center. You can also find our work published now in Assessing Writing. Here is the link if you're interested. Let me now go on and briefly present the background in which the work took place. CFR is the frame in our Language Center for Curricula and Assessment. And in 2016 we started to revise our exams to standardize them across 21 languages and 10 levels. We work with the CFR half levels, A11 to C12. We need to report all our outcomes on the university's 11-point scale, and don't ask me why, but there's no meaning behind the 11 grades. We still have to use them. Our aim was to marry our summative achievement tests at the end of each semester with the CFR proficiency levels that serve as our framework. Our courses run 15 weeks during one semester, 2 to 4 hours per week depending on the language and the level, and we used an intuitive approach to grading until 2016. Today I would like to focus only on writing. We developed test specs and task development in 2016. Then we had a first benchmarking session that I'll explain in a minute, where we wanted to map our 11-point university scale on the CFR half levels and set pass marks. Then we developed checklists during 2017, and we had 2 further benchmarking sessions to trial the checklists in one common language and across different languages, because we teach 21 languages, to refine the checklists, monitor consistency and compare our new approach with the traditional grades. And finally, I would like to share with you insights and conclusions. Let us look at the first benchmarking session in 2016. We developed test specs and tasks with a team of teachers, organizers and researchers in close collaboration. We then had a first benchmarking session where we got together to map the 11-point university scale to the CFR half levels and set a pass mark. And here you can see the university scale 0.1 and 1.0 and 1.3 means it's a very good work, and it goes down all the way to 5, which means a fail, and the big red line is the pass mark, which is very important for the students, of course. And we had 18 teachers in the first benchmarking round. We used German as a foreign language as our common language in the Languages Centers. All the teachers are proficient in German. We used 3 previously graded scripts and the CFR rating scales and the assessment grid from the manual in order to set a pass mark and map the grades on our levels. What do I mean by this mapping? We are looking at a course at B21, the lower B2 level, and the students should come from the lower end to the upper end of this half CFR level, and then at the end in the achievement test the teachers have to give a grade on this 11-point scale. So we looked at the 3 scripts, we used the CFR descriptors, and all the teachers unanimously decided the best mark is given if the student shows all features at the top end of B21. No teacher said they would expect more. No descriptor from the B2 plus level was needed in order to get the top grade. That was very reconfirming. And also all the teachers agreed that the pass mark 4.0 is set if the student text shows features at the beginning of B21, and the teacher still allowed some of the descriptors to be in B1 plus. And that is the beginning of the B21 level, and there the teachers agreed that would be a pass for this student. A very weak pass, but a pass. So that was very reconfirming that they reached a unanimous decision where to set the pass mark. Now let's go to checklist development. We had no means to develop a fine-grained descriptor set for all the 11 grades from 1.0 to 5.0. No way, we would never have achieved that. So we needed a checklist for our level-specific context because we only use one half CFR level in one classroom in one achievement test. So we described the target level with reference to the CFR. We used the CFR descriptors and adapted them to the higher education context. That is the proficiency orientation. But we wanted to marry it with our achievement approach because we have an internal grading system. We break it down into 5 big levels, the very good to fail, and we want to add relevant aspects from the learning outcomes and the classroom practice. That's the achievement orientation. And let me give you one example here. That is a German scale. In German, don't worry, we have it in English now, but it suffices to show you what we did. Here in brown, you see the CFR descriptors and their adaptations to our context. That's the proficiency aspect. And in blue, you see where we added relevant aspects from the classroom, and teachers can adapt these aspects to make it classroom specific. And here in blue, you see the 5 levels we have, from very good to not satisfactory, not fulfilled, not reached. So that's the checklist approach, and we have space for the teachers to write comments, to give their ticks, and based on the ticks and the comments where the teachers put the student text product in this 5 level checklist, the teachers then come to an overall grade on the 11-point university grade. We now come to the benchmarking session where we tried out the checklist in early 2018. We wanted to familiarize 15 teachers who participated there with the checklist and the approach and refine the checklists. We had one task, again in German as a foreign language, again 3 scripts. They should try out the checklist, give traditional grades, and discuss the checklist usability and the digression between the grade they give with the checklist and the traditional grade. And the outcome was that the digressions on the new checklist criteria were higher than on the final grades. And we also gained insight into where we should revise the criteria and the In a third benchmarking session, about a month later, we had the checklist refined and wanted them now to trial across different languages, monitor consistency, compare again with the traditional grades, and find the final tweaks. We used 3 language groups. The largest group of 9 teachers looked at English. We had 5 teachers looking at the 4 Roman languages we teach, and 3 teachers looking at the 2 Slavic languages we teach. And here we collected tasks in the classroom in the respective languages, and the teachers were all proficient to read the student answers. I would like just to now share briefly some data with you on the outcome of the English task. Well, the task was to use the checklist, give a grade, use the traditional approach, and give a grade then, and in the group discuss the usability, the digressions, and the necessary refinements. And looking at English and the outcomes of the English groups, we have here the raters with their rater IDs, and here we have the different criteria on the checklist. What's most important for us here is now the rows down at the bottom. One gives the grade the teachers reached with using the checklist, and the other is the traditional grade they would have given with an intuitive approach. And you see that the digressions go in both directions. Some teachers are more lenient with a checklist, some with a traditional approach. Some agree, and interestingly enough, the teachers only digress 1 scale point. You remember the scale we are using, the university grading scale. So that's very reconfirming, and we meanwhile had further training and benchmarking sessions, and the teachers are using the checklist and have come to try a new approach. Let me now come to conclusions. Our approach to benchmarking facilitated the familiarization of our teachers with a new approach and with the new checklists, and allowed targeted discussions and feedback. It showed us where the criteria and wording in a checklist needed refining, and it helped our teachers voice concerns regarding the transition from the intuitive grading to rating with a checklist. What we found helpful when managing transition from teacher-based to standardized assessment was to draw on the expertise of all teachers, course organizers, and researchers in a synergetic way during all phases, and to allow time for development, and particularly important, allow space to voice concerns. That was very important. And the final conclusions, we found that our approach to marrying achievement with proficiency reconciled achievement-oriented practices with a proficiency-oriented framework, allowed using the university grading scale while referencing it to the proficiency framework, and we found helpful when achievement tests are aligned to be aligned to a proficiency framework, that you develop checklists and test specs that are adaptable to fit individual teachers' needs and classroom practices while giving a common framework. And equally important is to involve all the teachers, the course organizers and the researchers during all the phases of test development. That sort of cooperation will yield the best results. Let me thank you for your attention and just remind you, if you want to read up our work, you can do that in the Journal of Assessing Writing. Many thanks for your attention. Bye.